Hi everybody and welcome back to Big Oggie's World. Today is the end of June, believe it or not, and the weather is absolutely, well, it's not completely pants, but it's not brilliant, and it's chilly. So I am going to make something that's sort of like a comfort tea, if you like. It's also a big day because the children are finishing college today forever. One's going to uni, one isn't. So it's the end of an era, if you like. And also recently it was Father's Day and the children got John this book for Father's Day. So it's a new Tom Kerridge and there are some really nice recipes in there. So the first one that we're going to do out of this book is a family beef mince pie. We're going to make the pastry and everything. We're doing the whole lot from scratch and it looks absolutely delicious. So I'm going to crack on. So first of all, we're going to make pastry. Now, if you don't want to make pastry and you want to buy your own pastry, you can buy shop bought pastry, that isn't a problem. The pastry that we are going to make is a traditional pastry in as much as it contains lard and butter and an egg. So it's quite a rich pastry. It kind of looks a bit rough puff, shall we say, or not completely sort of solid short crust. So, but like I said, if you want to buy your own, do. If you don't want to make this, skip to the next part where we'll be doing the filling. And obviously, if you know how to make pastry, you can also skip. So it's a basic start off, plain flour, salt, and then we're going to rub our fats in until they resemble, until the flour resembles breadcrumbs. So there's 125 grams of diced lard there, and the same amount, 125 grams of diced butter. And I am literally going to rub it in until it's light and breadcrumby. So come back in a bit. Okay, so once you've got your flour and fats combined, we are going to add into this a large beaten egg, which I'm going to pour into the middle. And also 100 mils of ice cold water. Now this water has been in the fridge overnight, so it's really cold. I'm going to add that in too. I'm going to add it all bar a little bit because I just want to check that it's not going to be too sticky. You can start working it with a knife if you like, or you can just get your hand straight in. It depends what suits you really. No, we're going to need the whole lot of the water. So in goes 100 mils of water. And now I'm going to get my hands in. So bring the pastry together into a bowl, or a ball rather. I keep bowls and balls. If it makes it easier at the end, you can tip it out onto the table and work it a little bit, just because it's quite a lot of dough. So even with my quite big mixing bowl, it's quite full in there. So once you've got it together, form it into a ball, flatten it down into a disc, wrap it in cling film, and we're going to fridge that for at least an hour. Now if you wanted to do your pastry the day before, you can absolutely do that too. So I'm going to fridge this for an hour and then I'll be back to start the filling. Okay, now to crack on with our filling. So to start off with, you're going to need quite a big pan, and I'm not sure whether mine's going to be big enough, so I may need to change part of the way through. And we're going to take half of our lard, and half of our olive oil, so a tablespoon. Don't worry about the amounts, John will put all the ingredients below for you. And we're going to melt that down. Now we kind of want it quite warm, but you don't want to put it over a high heat, so just sort of medium. And we're going to wait for the lard to melt and kind of go a little bit foamy. And once we get to that stage, we're going to add our onion and our carrots. Okay, so that's nice and warm, and in go my veg, carrots and onions. Now we're going to cook these for about 4 to 5 minutes until they're softening and breaking down a little bit, I guess. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, after the onions and the carrots have had their 4 to 5 minutes, we're going to add our celery. And also our garlic. And we're going to give that about another 4 minutes or so. Again, we've got no colour on the onions or anything. We're not here to colour it, we're just here to soften it. And they are lovely and translucent. The carrots are starting to soften, and that's exactly what we're aiming to do with our celery, is start it softening and obviously cook off our garlic. And be careful at this point, because the last thing you want to do now is to burn garlic, because it will ruin everything. It will taste so bitter. So just be a bit careful, keep things moving, and don't have the heat too high. We'll give that another 4. Okay, so our vegetables have had the allotted time, and we're going to remove them now and just scoop them out onto a plate. We'll put that to one side. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add the rest of our lard into our pan and the rest of our olive oil. And we're going to turn the heat up a little bit so it's a bit hotter. Now you don't want it raging heat, but you do want it a little bit warmer at this point. And into that we are going to add our beef mince. Now we're going to fry this until it's nice and browned. Keep breaking up any lumps with the back of your wooden spoon, because you don't want any great big heavy lumps. But get some colour on your meat. Okay, once you've got some colour on your meat, we're going to add our tomato puree. And that goes. And we're going to cook that off for about a minute. Okay, now that's all nicely combined. We're going to add our flour. Now try and sprinkle this over the top, and obviously we're going to stir it in. And we're going to cook this flour out for at least 2 minutes, because what we don't want is a floury taste. So make sure you mix it well and give it 2 minutes for the flour to cook out. Now that that's had its 2 minutes, we're going to add our vegetables back to the pan. And give them a good stir to combine everything if you can. Now next, in goes our red wine. Now you need about 200 ml of red wine, and I don't have quite enough. There's about 180 in here. So I'm going to add my red wine. but I'm also going to add a little bit of stock. I've prepared about another 20 mils of stock, so I'm just going to add a splodge of that in as well. Give that a good mix. Let it bubble away, because actually what you're doing now is burning off the alcohol, and you can actually smell it quite strongly if you're stood over it. I've turned my pan down a little bit because you don't want to brown the meat anymore. That's already done now. So what we're doing is constructing our meat sauce filling, if you like. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you're going to get your rosemary and thyme sprigs, and you're going to tie them together with a piece of string, and then you're going to stick that in the pot like that. Then you're going to take your beef stock and add that in. Give it a good mix around. Pot's a bit full, so be careful. Now, I'm going to let this come back up to sort of a rolling simmer, because obviously my beef stock wasn't hot. There we go. And then I'm going to turn down the heat and let it simmer for about half an hour. And that is going to thicken up our sauce and gravy and make it extra yummy. Now to do that, I'm going to put it on my main hob behind me, so this one gets overheating quite quickly. So I will be back in about half an hour when this is done. Okay, so my filling has had its full 30 minutes, and I'm going to remove the bundle of herbs. Be careful, obviously it's very hot. There we go. Now, final little bit for this is, oh, it smells delicious. We add in our Worcestershire sauce, and also Marmite, and that's going to give this an extra beefy boost. So in that goes too. Trouble with Marmite is it's very sticky. Keep stirring because you want your Marmite to sort of melt and meld into the beef mixture. Otherwise you'd have like one nicely beefy bit and another not so beefy. Really good. Oh, that Marmite makes such a difference. A little bit of salt, not too much. Pretty good actually, without adding too much salt. Good ground of pepper. Give it a good mix up again. And that is your filling done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this to cool, and then we're going to start putting our pie together, but we can't put a hot filling into a cold pastry. That would be not very good. So we're going to leave this to cool a bit, and then we will put it all together and bake the pie at the end. Okay, we are on the final stretch. So the filling has cooled, is still cooling. I have greased a pie dish. The recipe book suggests that you use a saute pan that you can obviously put into your oven. I don't have one, which is why I'm using a pie dish. Now, the only thing that I am querying with that is whether the pastry would actually crisp up better in a tin rather than a dish. But beggars can't be choosers, and you have to use what we got, and so that's going in a dish. So, pastry. You need to take it out of the fridge and split your bulk into 2/3 and 1/3. Obviously the 2/3 is going to go on the bottom and at the sides of your dish, and the other one is for the top. You need to preheat your oven to 180 fan, 200 if you don't have a fan, and gas mark 6 if you're on gas. So I'm going to try and remold this back into a circle and roll it out, and then just line my pie dish with it. You don't need to watch me doing that. Okay, so I've rolled out my pastry for the bottom, and I am now going to insert it into my pie dish. Now, it's quite delicate pastry, so make sure you lift the edges to allow them to sink into your dish. Otherwise you'll just poke holes in it. Okay, so that's my bottom bit in, and as you can see I'm leaving it overhang at the minute because I need to attach my top to it. So I'm going to re-roll the top, and then we'll be ready to put the filling in. As you can see, there's plenty of filling for your pie, and it's lovely and thick. It smells delicious. Spread it out. There we go. Now, with a beaten egg, brush a little bit around the outside of the pastry so that you can stick your top bit to the bottom bit. Top tip though, don't overdo the egg wash, otherwise the pastry becomes slippy and it'll slip and slide around and you won't be able to attach it properly. On goes the top piece, like so. Now, the benefit of having a pie dish is that I've got a lip to work on. So I'm going to go round and push my pie pastry bits together. And then we're going to trim the excess. Now crimp. You can either do it with your fingers or your thumbs, or you can get a fork and go all the way around and just push the fork together. You need to cut across in the middle, quite a big one, big enough to let the steam escape, like that. And then we're going to glaze the top of our pie with the beaten egg. Now you can be as generous as you like. And a final finishing touch, get a little bit of sea salt and just sprinkle it over the top if you want. If you don't want, that's absolutely fine. There we go. Now that is going to go into our oven for 40 to 45 minutes until it's nice and deep and golden brown. We'll be back with a picture at the end. I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. I always think pies are a bit of a labour of love, and it's certainly taken us a while to put this one together today, but it looks like a cracker. So please subscribe, hit the notification bell to know when we're around, and we will see you all again really soon. Bye for now.